right, thanks for joining me in the Roofer's Den. I got an exciting guest here for you guys. Somebody that I'm fortunate enough I've gotten to know over the last couple of months, actually probably the last 6 months. He is one of the pivotal members of the RRCA team. I've got Jared in the house today. Jared, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to have you on, man. You have got a story. You're one of the top producers over at RRCA, one of the most well-respected companies that there is in the industry. Shout out to Lee and that team and what you've been able to accomplish over in Brevard and all throughout the Central Florida area. Jared, you are to be applauded for that. But I really want to jump into your story, who you are and how you become one of the top producers there is, not only for RRCA, but we're talking one of the top salespeople there is in the entire state. And I think there's a lot of value that our contractors out there can get from some of the knowledge that you have. With that in mind, can you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about how you grew up, what it was like for you, kind of where it was for you before roofing, and then we'll kind of get into the roofing industry for you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So anyways, for the most part, I had a pretty good childhood, at least up until the age of 12, 13 years old. Then I started becoming more aware of different things, and I grew up in this business, the roofing business. And so our I guess happiness and my parents' happiness, if they would fight, was based on how good of a year it was, how good the hailstorm was. And so I hated the roofing business. I blamed it on every problem that I ever had because just my parents fought nonstop. And so there was times like when they did leave and separate for a while. My dad went to Colorado, we stayed here, and that was tough. And so I just learned a lot of stuff leading up, but I think it hindered me, okay, because I wasn't focused. I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have my why. I was already 17, 18 years old, and I still didn't know really what I was going to do. And if we're going to be honest, that 18, 19 is right around when I got into using drugs. Not anything really hardcore, but prescription pills, stuff like that. I had sold them before. I have never tried them though. I just had shattered my ankle. I was a running back for Plano Senior High, one of the best schools in Dallas. And so, yeah, and I shattered my ankle at the beginning of my 12th grade year, senior year. So I lost all my scholarships, lost everything. I lost who I was. I didn't know my identity. And so I just started partying. I moved down to Austin, Texas, and I started partying. I didn't go to school. I signed up for school. I did sign up for college, and I paid for one semester, bought all the books and everything, and I went to one class, and I just said, this isn't for me. I can't sit through this. I mean, she's just reading a book to us. So anyways, I never went back after that day, but I stayed in the dorm for another 6 months. And so it was fun. I have a lot of memories from there. But it also made me, how can I say it? Because I got in trouble, but I knew my dad would always be able to get me out somehow. And so like I didn't have a mindset of, like I just wasn't paying attention to my actions as much as I should have been paying attention to and the people that I was surrounding myself with, because I was a smart guy. I mean, I had straight A's in schools. I had a 3.8 GPA graduating. And that's without trying, studying, anything. So I was a smart kid, but I made a lot of dumb decisions, a lot of them. And they started when I was 18 and 19 years old. That's when I found myself into the legal system. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure most people know by now, if you're in the legal system, it's hard to get out. You're a target every time you do get pulled over. And so I had a lot of troubles, but about 18, 19, I was 19. I agreed because I was going to have to go to jail for a little bit of time I agreed to check myself into rehab. I didn't actually agree. I just did it right before I had to go to court, and they couldn't pull me out of rehab because they can't do that. So when I got out of rehab, they lessened my sentence by a lot, which honestly probably made something in my head click that, oh, I can get away with stuff, like I could figure it, you know what I mean? And so I didn't really at that point get hit hard with the truth, and I didn't get hit hard with what I'm doing. And so I thought I was beating the system. I'm sure a lot of people do think that, especially when they're young. And the reason I'm saying all this is because it's building the foundation for how I did get to where I'm at.
Well, I think it's so.
So
I don't want to interrupt you because I want to be very open and honest with you too. Not a lot of people. In fact, I've never told this story, whether it be on a podcast or professionally. So I'm going to put it out there just because you did. One of my biggest struggles before I got into working with my claims care with cocaine, I was using it way too much, man, and I was using it as a crutch in my life. And you talk about going to rehab. For me, the lowest point in my life was that, I was Baker acted because I was high on cocaine. It was about 4 or 5 years ago now, and it was on St. Patrick's Day. Never forget, in March, and it was one of those low points for me to where the drugs got the best of me, and I think that that's something that not a lot of people talk about in this industry because there are such extreme highs and there's such extreme lows, whether it be the time of the year or a fucking hailstorm or a hurricane. And, you can go from being on top of the world, man, to feeling like you're nothing. And I wasn't ready mentally to deal with that. So I say that because, obviously that was a little later in my life than what you're talking about, but I understand that pressure and that feeling that you're talking about.
yeah, man. And so especially now, so I'm like, I get out of rehab. The only thing left for me to do now is go to the roofing business. And so I called Lee up. He was in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I said I wanted to come work for him. And he gave me $2,500 to put a down payment on a truck and told me he'll give me $500 when I got there. And I said, okay. I jumped on that. And so I was living back with my mom. It just wasn't a good situation. I wasn't in a good situation mentally. And so I get to Knoxville and I'm full of excitement, okay? Full of this. I'm ready in my career. I see all these guys. They're all got nice cars, nice vehicles, boats. They're still like not 100% professional. They're more like me. I could tell they grew up more like me and they're making all this money. And so I instantly was excited about, okay, this is going to be fun. I started out in Knoxville. I didn't really sell anything because it was the end of the storm. I was just shadowing a guy named Scott. And, he was probably my first mentor, to be honest with you, him and Bill Dodson. And one thing I can say, like, to anybody out there is, you can follow anyone you want and take information from anyone you want, but when you're choosing your mentors, be selective, okay? Because they can just lead you the wrong way because they don't have the right mindset. Their mindset doesn't line up with your mindset. Their character or principles don't line up with your character and principles. And so when they quit and you quit because you're looking at them, that's, so the first couple mentors I had.
I'm sorry to interrupt. How old are you at this point when you get those first mentors, when you're just getting introduced to the industry right here and you're getting there to Knoxville? About how old are you at this time?
So I'm 19 now. I'm
okay.
19. And we actually went to Nashville. So me and Lee, I rode with Lee, or I followed Lee in my truck. We went to Nashville, Tennessee, and we were selling in this area called Belmead. And it was like just an area, just a nice area out. Like they were really rich and stuff, and it was hard to get into it. And we were having a really tough time. I was in particular having a tough time, but some of the other salesmen, they were having a tough time too. We found this neighborhood, however, and we found the neighborhood captain. His name was Bill Pauley. He had taken pictures with Ronald Reagan, you know, just all the presidents of his time. He knew everybody in the neighborhood, and we got his roof approved. He was our first deal in that neighborhood. We got his roof approved, put on a black roof. There was no damage. And I'm sorry I'm saying this on here, but there really wasn't any damage on there. It was ghost tail. And so to fast forward, now we start getting all these calls. Okay, me and another guy named Donnie Black start getting all these calls in that neighborhood, and we're just going out. They're like, we got an adjuster coming out on this day. Just Bill Pauley had rode around and told everyone to call us, that they needed to call us right now. So anyways, the adjusters start coming out, and Bill Pauley shows up to every single adjuster appointment while we're there. And while we're on the roof, whatever, he'll get down and he'll grill the insurance. Like, he'll grill them, and just may not grill them like mad, but say, hey, you need to prove this, just kind of strong arm him. And we ended up doing 30 roofs, and Bill Pauley made everyone go with black. And so we almost roofed that whole neighborhood, but that like gave me a new life, because this was probably 5 to 6 months into maybe a little bit more into my journey, my roofing journey. And I hadn't really generated nothing. Okay. And so I had those doubts in my mind that maybe this ain't for me. Okay. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I don't have what it takes. And so that's when I started doing what, I know that, will help me, the crutch. Okay. So mine was Xanax, and I'm just going to come out there and it was Xanax. And so because I had this anxiety of I'm out in this new place and I don't know what I'm doing, and it's no excuse, but I made it, and I justified it, and I made it an excuse. And so if I would have just doubled down on the information like I did further on in my life and got around the right energy and the right people, I wouldn't have ever needed to do that. But because I felt like, so much anxiety, I can't do this, that I went out and seek that. So fast forward now, we do all those routes, and we've been on two cities now, or two cities in the past 6 to 7 months. Well, we got kicked out. Me and Lee got ran out of Belmead. And so we got the cops called and a bunch of stuff. So we just hightailed it to the next storm in St. Louis. And so we're in a place called O'Fallon, Illinois. And I'll just do this real quick. We ended up finding another president, another captain on the team, which was the name Goraz. Okay, they had built every house in the whole city. I ended up knocking the door of this old lady. She was gonna call the cops on me because she had she just got it that day in the mail too, that if anyone knocks on your door, call the cops. And so she just had read that, and I just sat there and I talked to her for like 30, 40 minutes. They were the first house in the neighborhood. I built rapport with her. I wasn't even going to try to sell her at that point. And then after 30, 40 minutes.
We lose the sound?
Yeah. And called her husband. Her husband had serious cancer. It was, I don't know if it was, I don't know what type of cancer, but he was fighting it for 9 years.
Oh, damn.
And it was bad. Okay. And he had these 2 rental properties that he just paid like $70,000, $80,000 to do the roofs on both of these rental properties, and they started leaking. Okay, so he told me, his house had a presidential shape, and so it was one of the biggest roofs, like most profitable roofs in that neighborhood. So I wanted to get that roof. Like, I was going to make money on that, and that was going to be a good deal for me. And so I went out there. There was no damage on either one of his buildings, but I still had him call the insurance company. And sometimes you can just paint a picture. Sometimes you can really, hail did hit that area, and so you just didn't really cause the damage to the roof. However, I played a little ignorant, like I didn't know exactly what hail damage was. And so I had the adjuster come up and explain, and there was no damage up there. And he explained that it had to have it had to have a bruise, and the fiberglass had to be pushed out. And I was like, how would you know that? And he said, well, there's spots, but like if you push on it, the back of it's like malleable. And so I didn't think it was gonna work. I really didn't. And so I was like, well, look at this spot. You feel this? And he started touching that spot. He's like, yeah, yeah. And I was like, well, now look at this. Okay, don't you feel that the back of the shingle is broken out? I mean, couldn't the hail fall on the roof and just blow the back of the shingle out and the granules stay on? And so, I ended up getting both roofs approved doing that method. And it was funny because we used it a lot. So this guy ended up having his brother ended up being one of the builders that built every house in O'Fallon. His son took over the business, and Lee and Donnie, they went in together, father son, because they had a father son business. Lee and Donnie went in there, and it's funny, I get to it, but yeah, they went in there and closed them. And so they had a lot of deals, and that's what kind of saved me. All right, it gave me new excitement because I was ready to quit again. These guys were slamming the door in my face. I was like, I'm too young. Like, they don't want to give me the money. I made every excuse in the book, okay, to want to quit. If I didn't have Lee, I would have quit. And that's just point blank because he wouldn't let me quit because I was living with him for the first 2 years. And so, yeah, he didn't, and it was nonstop roofing. When the second we woke up till we went to bed, 10:30, we're still talking about roofing. And so he's been literally immersed. He hasn't stopped. His brain doesn't stop thinking about roofing. But
I want to stop you for 1 second. I want to ask you a question about that. So as I'm gathering it, there are 2 times. One when you're in Tennessee and then you're in Illinois where you're like, man, almost just like, fuck it. This is not for me. I'm about to give up. And it sounds like there's a couple things. One, you kept on persevering and you went to the next house and you got the big deal that turned it around in both states. But then 2, you had a good mentor. You had somebody there on your side that was pushing you forward as well. Would that be correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And having the mentor, what was the most important thing. From your ages to 18 to 30, you should have a mentor that you can talk to and that can guide you through things. I didn't really have a mentor when I was young. My dad wasn't the best mentor. And so there was a lot of things that I didn't learn. One thing, like how I speak, I wasn't good at, and he drilled it in me. He would speak right, speak right. And so over time, I had to drop my accent. I had to just, what is it called? Reinvent myself. And so I reinvented myself, but it wasn't good enough, really. I still had all my bad habits. And we ended up doing pretty good in St. Louis. Then we came back to like Texas, I believe, and no, we went up to Omaha. And Omaha, this was like my breakout point, okay? Because these houses were huge. They were all 100,000, 60, 70, $100,000 wood shakes. And I was in there and there was a few people that kind of like put down on me and got a better deal, like, because I just wanted to get a deal. I was just trying to get the deal, so I let them negotiate it. And then the third time that happened that year, I don't know, something just clicked. This was like 2 years into the business now, okay? After about 18 months into the business, 2 years, something finally clicked in my head that I'm valuable and they need me, okay? For some reason, I thought like, oh, this is so easy. Like they could do it by themselves. Like I can't let them. I just, I have to get the deal because I want, it's so easy to do. Yeah, but it's not. And you have to have a good qualified contractor that can do the entire job from beginning to end, from the sell point to the dealing with the insurance, mortgage, all that stuff. But for me, I was still young, 20 years old. I almost thought, I don't want to say scamming, but Kind of like, how do we get to make all this money for being a middleman? We're not doing anything. Okay. Like, really. But that's because I grew up in the business and a lot of the stuff came natural to me. And so a lot of these things came, I just thought it was normal common sense. Like, so my dad did train me in that area, like as far as the man shit, working on cars, hunting, all the stuff, football he wanted me to do. Um, and
When
yeah,
did,
so I
when did
don't
it,
know. That was my first. Yeah.
when did it click though for you? Was there a moment where you said, okay, where you saw the
Yeah.
value in yourself? Was there, do you remember being on a roof, talking to a homeowner, seeing a deal fall through or come forward or come to fruition, I should say, for you? Was there a moment for you there?
Yeah. So I'll tell you. I had it probably was 3 or 4 months into Omaha, and I was fighting tooth and nail. Like I said, giving away profits that I shouldn't. And there was two deals that I just almost lost money on. Okay, and then I was talking to this guy who I had already got his roof approved. I had gotten everything. I'd done my job. I'd done my part. And now I'm supposed to get the contract. I'm not charging him any more than his out of pocket. And so he was trying to do the deal that the first two did. And you know what? I just put down, I said, look, I'm going to go ahead and walk out. Okay. If you want to call me and you want to, sit down and negotiate, then call me and we can negotiate. But I'm not going to keep playing these games. And so it was like 6 o'clock, and I was out of frustration that he was even had to cut him off. Like, hey, I know where you're going with this. You're trying to make money. Okay, it's not gonna happen. And I'm gonna walk out of here because I don't like dealing with people like you. Okay, if you're willing to scam your insurance company, I don't want to deal with you. And so I'm gonna go. Okay, but if you want someone who's valuable, who's gonna do a good job, who is gonna make sure that your work is warranted and take responsibility, give me a call. Okay, but until then, I'm gonna go. Adios. And probably like the next morning, I had a missed call from them, and I called them back, and they were like, yeah, we want to go ahead and use you. I apologize for all the stuff, this and that. And so that moment was like, oh, okay, I have to put my foot down sometimes. Like, I can't, and what clicked in my head was selling is different than closing. And I
Why do you
wasn't
think?
ever asking for the close.
Mm,
And so because I wasn't asking for the close and I was just selling, it allowed them to get in there and ask for the close so much. And so because they were closing their self, we were both selling. I never asked for the close. They did it all the time. And so that's what really clicked in my head is, I have to actually, from the start, from when I meet them, like let them know I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to close you. Okay. And always be asking for the close at all times. Okay. They know that you're not doing this for free. But at the beginning, my first 2 years, I thought, how do you make this much money and it's this easy? Like
mhm.
I did not understand it. And so I was almost like scared that like someone was gonna catch on and it'd be like, And so it took me 2 years to really find my value, to really realize that, okay, I'm doing a service and this is not just, find some roofers to roof your house and send in the invoice to the insurance company. There's a lot more that goes into this.
Do you
And
do you see now as a
right?
manager, because you've got some great people on your team, but and like in any roofing industry or any roofing business, there are people that come and go. So you're hiring new people. Do you see individuals that struggle with doing exactly that, with standing up for themselves and saying, okay, this is a sales presentation. I'm going to ask for the close. They're personable individuals, but they don't know how to close the deal. Do you see that?
Absolutely. And 75% of the salesmen that come into the door, that's what they do. Their first instinct when they knock on the door, hello, my name is My name is Janacek. I work for RRCA. We're doing, whatever after that, but you can't approach it like that. You got 9 seconds to really impact the customer so that you can close the deal, so that you can transition into the close. But if you never impacted that homeowner, if you didn't grab their attention, then they're going to get into a price negotiating battle with you, okay? Because your value was not shown up front. And now when I go out with guys, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think sometimes it's even just in the way that you present yourself. I think there's some value in shoulders back, chest high, head up. How are you going to present yourself? Are you walking to the door and you're just saying, "Hi, my name is Patrick Carr. I'm with RCA. I noticed some damage on your roof today, and I wanted to stop by as I am with your other neighbors." I mean, come on, man. What are you there for? I'm not saying put on an act, but I am saying, hey, have pride in what you're doing. I think that energy and that pride can go a long ways just in the way that you present that information.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm always gathering intel. And so my approach is a little bit different. When I go on the door and knock on the door, I don't introduce myself or the company at all. I jump right into trying to strike a chord in their emotions, the right into sense of urgency, whether it be, knock, knock, knock. Hey, look, I don't know if you know this, but you were actually part of a catastrophic event, or I might go through that one, or I might say, knock, knock, knock. Hey, so what's the status of the claim? And then they have to say, what claim? I don't have a claim, or, I'm working with an insurance company. And so there's just a bunch of different pitches. It's all that I do, but I never introduce myself first because, like I said, you got 9 seconds to really strike that chord. You can introduce yourself later on in the process. One thing is old roofs, okay? You knock on the door and say, hey, look, your roof's 15 years. The reason I stopped by is because your roof's 15 years old. And I don't know if you know this, but there's actually a catastrophic event on July 31st. Tornado came through here, caused really high winds. You might or might not qualify, but I've actually gotten 3 or 4 of your neighbors approved just right down the street. We're going to be doing their roofs. They got approved for $15,000 to $20,000. And so they were really happy we were able to save them that, because they were going to have to get their roofs done here pretty soon, just like you. And so what we're doing today is we can do a free inspection. We'll hop up there, we'll take photos, we'll walk around the property, and we'll find if there's any storm damage. And then we can go through that process of getting your insurance company out here, filing the claim, and making sure we get your job approved. And if you don't have damage, well, at least you got peace of mind that your roof's okay. And, it's hard to really say no when you approach them in a way that it's almost would be stupid, like, for them to say no, because the value. Yeah, go ahead.
So I like those words you use, that where you start off with the did you know, and peace of mind. That's the kind of stuff that lets people's guard down a little bit, and they go, oh, okay, well, I mean, yeah, I didn't know that. You're right. Now I have an emotional attachment to this because, yeah, my neighbor's got this roof. I don't want to be left out. That fear of being the one who doesn't get that great roof for nothing, doesn't get saved the money. And then, that peace of mind line at the end that I like that you use that. I think that lets people's guard down a little bit and go, yeah, peace of mind would be good. There's value in that.
Yeah, I can't hurt your situation. Okay. There's no way I can hurt your situation by taking a look at your roof. And I know why you're saying no and objecting to me for looking at your roof, because you think that I'm going to get into a sales with you and you don't want to have to pay for something because, you got sold, yourself, and that if you're going to end up signing, and you just don't want to go through that. And so a lot of times it's not why they're saying no or they're not interested. A lot of times, especially in lower income housing, I mean, a lot of new guys, they feel more comfortable for some reason going into 20 to 30 square houses. And some of these people don't really have money, especially with COVID. So anything you're talking about, they can't afford. And so they're already shutting you out from the beginning. That's why you don't have time to introduce yourself. Hi, my name is, my company is, this is what I'm doing. You have to jump straight into it. You have to strike a chord, and you have to do it with like tonality, body language, use your hands, okay? Point, you know, be animated because they're gonna remember you. And you have to be genuine still. You have to be enthusiastic, still genuine. It can't be fake and you know, fake energy. But that's how I approach the door, right?
So tell me how you go from now you've gotten some success in Omaha, correct?
Correct.
So you've got that success there. You've been in the business for a couple of years. You've got a good mentor. You're learning these skills that we're talking about right now. These skills to be able to go and have confidence in yourself, door knock, be able to draw the customer, be in control of the situation, close the deal, not just sell them. Those are the things you're learning during that time in your life, right?
Correct.
So
And
tell
so
me
there's
yeah, how do you go from there? Tell me what happens from Omaha on.
Okay, so towards the end of Omaha, I picked up the book Steve Jobs, and it was 800 pages. I've never read more than 100 pages, you know, and I just love Steve Jobs. He was like a really, you know, influential person in my life as far as like his story goes. And so I started reading it and I couldn't stop. And so I read all of that book and I was like, whoa, you know, it had so many, like the way he thinks, what he goes about his process. And so I just started reading books. And that was when things started exponentially going up for me is when I got into reading books. And it wasn't just like sales books, it wasn't just self-development books. I was just reading a bunch of different books. And it just helped also with the way I articulate my words, new words, being able to say different things. And that's when at the end of Omaha, so at that time, I went up to South Dakota. The reason I went to South Dakota and I got pulled from Omaha, my dad was in South Dakota running the storm, and he had to go back to Texas because my sister was having her baby. And so he went back to Texas and he ended up not coming back. And so, because he had a house there and that. And so I ended up taking over that storm. And that was my first little okay of management. And I took it extremely serious. I really did. Like, first thing I did was go through all the old leads. I mean, I wanted to show everybody up because it was getting run by this guy that I didn't really like. No one really liked him. And he was just an asshole. And so I just wanted to show him up. And first thing I did was there was 150 to 200 leads that were old. Went and printed them all out and got everyone in the office. And I just started calling them. And when they saw that I was making appointments, everyone started calling them. We got probably 30 to 40 leads out by doing that. And so now I still use that tactic today. Okay. Another thing was collections. The other GM had left, not my dad, but the other one before him had left a bunch of jobs. They were all under 10%, and there was like 40 jobs. Some of them were negative. Some of them we were losing money on. And so I had to go collect them. And this is, I'll tell you, this is probably what took me from being a kid to being a man. All right.
Okay.
And this was tough because these people already didn't want to deal with us because the other GM, they hated us. It's been months since they heard from anything. They might not even have the money. Okay. They might have spent it. But I just, something in me, I just wanted to take it so serious, like I said. So I went by, made a list, and I drove to every single one of their doors. And I knocked on the door. And every single one, I just kind of was like, I need to sit down and talk with you. And I was trying, so I'd pull up their file, I'd pull up their claim on Claim Express, I'd pull up their insurance paperwork, and I would say, look, okay, I'm 5%. I'm only making 5% profit on this. There's no way I can warrant your roof. You know what I mean? Like, this is not fair. Some people, I'd say half of them made it right, like brought it up. They came out of their pocket to at least get us to 20%. And then half of them said, fuck you. you know, in which they had a contract so they could do that. All of them could have done that. And yeah, that was like, because it took me 3 or 4 weeks, and just going and sitting down and having to ask people for money, knowing they're about to yell at you, knowing that it's not on good terms, knowing that they probably don't have the money, and then you're gonna have to scare them or do something about it. And that's just, after doing 30 of them, you know, that's really when I became a man. My confidence and swagger just went through the roof. Okay. However, I was still in trouble. All right. Through this process, I'm still on probation. So since I'm 18, I got a 10-year sentence and I was on probation. So I ended up going back to Texas. I had to transfer back to Texas, and I ended up getting in trouble, real trouble. And this was what really cost me. So no, I didn't have 10 years probation at that time. I forgot. I drove back to Texas, and within, I don't know, like, and here's the thing, okay? I had $30,000 in my bank account I had saved, and it's a lot of money.
Yep. A lot of cash to be
probably saved. So when I went back, when I went back, for some reason in my mind, I said, I'm going to run out of money too quick. Like, there's not going to be another storm for 4 or 5 months, and I'm not going to be able to do it. Like, and so I went and took every freaking dime I had and bought a load of drugs. And it was not good. It was all kinds of them. There was a festival down in Austin, and if I just got to that festival, you know, I was going to at least double or triple up. And I already had people who called me. So unfortunately, I believe it was the God that actually did that and settled me down, because he knew my path was going to be different. And if I ever went there and I really did make that flip, it probably wouldn't have stopped. I probably would have done it again and again and again, you know, if I knew I could do it. And so he intervened, and I got pulled over. The cop talked to me for like 30 minutes, okay? And then another cop pulls up and he writes me a warning, not the second cop. And so I'm getting back into the car, and the other cop comes up and he's like, it smells like weed, everyone get out. So long story short, they ended up taking my car. I ended up going to jail that night, and I was sick in my stomach because I knew how much drugs I had. And I got blessed the next day because the judge looked at me and was like, you know, you don't look like a bad kid or whatever. I was in a really bad jail that was nasty, and all crackheads were coming in and that stuff. And so he gave me a really cheap bail. It was like $2,500, and I instantly paid that and got out. I ended up fighting that charge for 18 months. And the first sentence they gave me was like 20 years. And so like I was like, oh my God. And so I just like, I'm thinking like, Jesus, after 18 months and probably $70,000, you know, I got him down to 8 years deferred probation. And so, which was not very good. Deferred probation is if you complete your probation, then the charges come off your record. And 8 years was a lot of time. And so that's really where my downfall was. So when I did move back to Texas, and that happened and I got out, I was really depressed at that point, really, really depressed. And so where did I go after that?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this. It's, you know, I remember the low point I was telling you about, where I was Baker acted, and I was just doing so much cocaine at that time because I didn't know what I was doing, man. I didn't have purpose in my life, and the things I was doing, even though I was, you know, maybe closing some deals and stuff, I wasn't happy, man. And you know, there was no fulfillment. You know what I mean? And so the lowest point, I remember one of the major investors in my current company right now in My Claims Care, a guy by the name of Evan Phillips, who's a mentor to me. And I'll never forget, he pulls me over to the side. We were at the Westin in Lake Mary. And he says to me, he goes, listen, he goes, I love you like a son. But I'm going to tell you something right now. If I ever see you at a festival, if I ever see you at another club, if I see a picture of you at another club, if I hear about you at a festival doing one of those things again, he goes, I'm not just going to fire you. I'm going to make sure that nobody hires you that I know. And he goes, you're not going to do this anymore. And I think it speaks to what you were talking about earlier, is having a mentor in your life, especially when you're a young man, that comes in and says, enough of this shit. And sometimes, you can realize it yourself and you can kind of hit that low point. But even for me, when I hit that low point, it wasn't enough. I needed somebody to come up to me and say, hey man, you're fucking up your life. You need to stop this crap. Get yourself back on the right track. And here's what I'm going to force you to do that, because I'm going to take away your income. I'm going to take away it all from you if you don't.
Yeah, so I had that same mentor, okay, Donnie and Lee, but Lee's one thing about Lee, he doesn't hide his feelings, okay? He's not gonna hide it. You're gonna get your ass chewed out, especially because I was family and I grew up, and so it was a different situation. He had took me under his wing, and it was an everyday thing. And I tried to hide it for a long time, but I just couldn't. So, anyways, when I got that charge in Texas, I was like, I can't stay in Texas. So I went up to Pennsylvania, Reading, Pennsylvania.
Who's in
And
Pennsylvania at that time? Do you have family there? Are you guys working up there? What's going on in
yeah,
Pennsylvania?
we're working up there. Yeah, we're working up there.
All right.
And so we have an office that just started up there. I had recruited 3, 4 guys. So this was like my first real team as a sales manager. Because the other one, I was the manager, but it was still getting managed from from afar in a corporate and stuff like that. And I didn't have to do what I had to do here. But so I had a team of 4 guys. Lee made a deal with me where I can get overrides on stuff, and so that was exciting. This is where I kind of found the formula of how you scale an all-star team, how you develop and scale an all-star team. And it really just starts as, if you're the leader, you have to go out and lead from the front. You have to be the one that knock the doors with them and pitch with them. Then you go up there, and if they're knocking, let them knock. And then if they freeze up, jump in. So you save them. That's what you have to do until they get going. You have to go sell their first couple of jobs. If they have the right mentality, the right mindset, the right character, the right energy, enthusiasm, they're organized, and that if they just learn this business and sales, that they would kill it. And so those are the guys you got to go spend time with. You got to go out in the field, knock the door with them, and build their book of business up. And so that's what I was doing with this team. And we ended up doing, like, I think between all of us, like 3 million, 3.5 million.
Congrats.
Which was all right. It wasn't great, but yeah, it was all right. We all made pretty good money. And I went back to Dallas after Reading, and that was a mistake. That was a
How long were
mistake.
you in Pennsylvania
And
for?
so I just,
Jared, I want to talk. I'm sorry, but how long were you in Pennsylvania before going back to Dallas?
probably 9 months. Yeah,
Okay.
9 months.
You generated
Maybe 9 months, a year. You froze up. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You generated $3.5 million in that 9 months there.
Yeah, between the team.
Nice job.
Yeah, between me and my 3 guys.
Great job.
And so, yeah, they got all them into the roofing business, and they're all still in it. But I, fell off as their leader, so they went their ways. And anyways, I'm not mad about it. But anyways, I go back to Texas, and I get right back into the same shit I was doing. Right back into it. I didn't even hesitate. I go up to Twin Peaks. All my girlfriends are up there. Left that night, with the one, and right back into that life. And
Yep.
so, of course, karma, you know, you can't beat karma. That's the one thing. And I had guardian angels, my grandma. And I just feel like I was always on my way to do something worse. And then I get pulled over for something petty. And because I'm on probation, I go to jail no matter what. And so it like saves me every single time that I was, you know, gonna go do something real stupid. And so I always thought I had a guardian angel. I would sit in it and reflect when I was in the cell. I would sit there and reflect on every event that happened that day, every step I made to where I got to this point. And if I just did a little bit different, if I just went over here, then I would have got to that point. It had to line up perfectly. You know, the universe had to line up perfectly. And so um that really hit me and really affected me because it was like an eye opener. Like I can't keep doing this stuff. I can't keep getting in trouble. I can't keep doing it. Unfortunately though, there was still some more times and it beat me down, okay? Every time I was doing good, I had a team of 30 guys in San Antonio. I'll get to that. And then I walk into probation and they violate me and handcuff me right there. And I sit for 4 months. And so it was bad. Um,
Hey, Jared, I
Donnie
want
and Lee lost faith in me.
I want to stop you right there because the feeling that you got right there and what I feel for you, I think there's a lot of contractors out there that are being beat down, man, that have that feeling to where it just feels like every turn it's just something against them. How do you rebound from at that point right there, man? I mean, where do you go from there, brother?
Um, so for me is getting around energy that's successful energy. Because if you ever were successful or if you ever did anything or had dreams or whatever, and you get around the right energy,
Mhm.
and you can be interdependent. You know, sometimes you go out and outdoors with someone, okay, and y'all take each side of the street, but y'all get in the car and y'all can talk and laugh, so you're not stuck in your head. A lot of contractors, what they do is, especially new ones, is when they. So I always tell them there's 90 to 120 days that you're gonna have to commit and you're gonna have to hustle and it's gonna be a grind. It's gonna be a grit. You're not gonna really get paid much, but if you make it and you do it and you get to this goal, I promise you you'll make six figures. And so I always tell them 50 claim numbers. Okay, that's not hard. I mean, 10 of them will fall off for, you know, because they want too much or, you know, they're making you jump too much hurdles. 10 of them will get denied. You got 30 to work with, and that'll be sprinkled along. And that some of them might take 6 months, some of them might take 5 weeks, you know, so you're building your pipeline up. And when you get to that 90 to 120 days and your jobs are starting to cap out and you're burnt out and you don't want to knock anymore, you're still getting all these referrals. And so you're still pumping the oil in your pipeline. It's still coming through, still coming through. And so it always starts with the energy, though. You have to get around the right energy to, especially if you let your book of business die. And that's the worst is if you let your book of business die and you have zero momentum, that's when you really get stuck in your head. I mean, I know a lot of contractors, they self-medicate because they have to, like they're just stuck in their head and they don't want to go to the door because when you go to the door and you have these negative thoughts, you have these thoughts of depression, or you have these negative thoughts, self-reflection of yourself, um, it shows, you know what I mean? It shows at the doorstep and they don't want to deal with you. And so if you're not enthusiastic, you're not genuine, you're not excited to be there, you're not present, listening to them, answering their questions, then there's no point in you even going out there and you probably need to find something else to do. But I'm telling you, the way you can come back is you especially just need to get around energy. And whether it's YouTube, whether it's Sky Diamonds, whether
Yep.
it's a meetup, got the meetups, you just need to get around positive energy and let your mind relax for a bit.
How do you go get from you're there in Dallas and things are not going very well? Where does it turn around for you? Do you start surrounding yourself at that point with that positive energy, or does it take a little bit longer? Where does it go from there?
It takes a little bit longer. So I still wasn't living right when I got back to Dallas. That was later on when that realization fully came on. But San Antonio got hit and they asked me to go to San Antonio.
Okay.
So I got my probation transferred to San Antonio from Dallas because it was still in state. And so I go down there and I'm the sales manager. We have a production manager. And the GM is like Lee and Donnie, like together. But they really never came. And so I ended up taking over that spot. And we had about 25 guys that were selling jobs and doing really kick ass. We were doing a lot of work. We were up like 5 million or 6 million on the year. And I go in like September and I didn't for my probation and I didn't get back until January. So, I mean, they locked me up inside of there. So they didn't let me make a call. I was supposed to go down. I was on my way to give a meeting. And so I didn't show up. Everyone quit. Everyone quit, except for one or two people that are still with us. Actually, only one of them that's still with us. And so that hit me so hard. That really did, because these people had families. These people had bills. These people had all kinds of stuff and they put their trust into me. And I let that many people down, and because of my problem, okay, my issues. And that really messed with me. So all these realizations I'm having, okay, this is all accumulating with the books I'm reading, with the spiritual development I'm doing, to accumulate to where I am now. But after San Antonio, or I go to jail and then I don't get out until the next year. And so when I get out, I go back to San Antonio. I had maybe two salesmen were still there, a whole bunch of problems because the production guy, he didn't do nothing. He just collected a $2,000 check every week and pretended he was on the computer. And so he let them all go to shit. And so I couldn't collect on anything. It was hard. So I got back right into doing drugs. And it was tough because me and my roommate who was in the company were both doing them. And so we couldn't hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
And I started, messing with the wrong type of girls, which I've had the issue with, a lot. And so it wasn't good. I ended up, well, let me rewind. I
Well,
forgot the
Jared, I want
big
to stop you
pivotal
right there.
moment in my, huh?
I want to stop you right there because I think this is something so pivotal right now. Me and you have both struggled with drugs at some point in our life. There are an immense amount of contractors that are doing the same out there. And I know that Lee right now is starting a program for contractors to be able to group together and to be strong for one another. And I think it's just so pivotal that there are people that realize that, hey, man, this business is not easy. And you go through these highs and these emotional lows, and it's tough when you got the family on top of that and the pressures that go with it, whether it be the own the company or you're the sales rep. But you're not alone in that. And for a long time, I felt alone. And I don't know about you, Jared, but maybe you felt alone in it too. But it's tough sometimes when you don't have somebody there that you can depend on, and somebody that can say, hey, man, I'm there with you. I'm going through the same shit. So shout out to Lee, shout out to RCA and people like Jared who are able to say, hey, man, I got your back. You're not the only one going through that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think I resented Lee and everyone else in the company because I thought, oh, they should be helping me more of this or that. They're ignoring me, but really it's because I was doing stupid shit. And until I came around, what's the quote? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and that's true. Okay, to this day, I watched Lee go from when I got down and I met Lee at first. He was doing these door knocks. I was like, how do you because I knew Lee back in the past and he was a little bit of a fuck up like me. And so I'm like, how did you learn a lot of stuff out of the Grant Cardone 10X book? And so he had Grant Cardone on his site since I first started about 10 years ago. And he obsessed over getting to that goal of selling Grant Cardone. And he did it. So I've seen Lee's journey from salesman to, you know, almost public company, you know?
Yep.
And so that really inspired me. That really gave me motivation. Let me rewind though, because one of the most pivotal points that happened in 2016 before I went to San Antonio was my dad passed away,
I'm
and
sorry.
that's really why I came to see. Yeah, that's really why I got on drugs because I just couldn't deal with the grief. Like I didn't ever go through the grieving process. Later in life, I did after I got sobered up. But anyways, so 2017 comes and I get through 2017. I'm pretty sure that so I went to go work in the corporate office for like $600 a week, $700 a week, and I
Where's that at now?
hated it.
Are you down
Mm,
like in the Naples area?
It was in no, it was in Fort Worth in
Fort
Texas. We're
Worth.
still in
Okay, okay,
Texas
okay.
at this time.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah. So I was doing for like, because I was only in San Antonio probably 3 weeks after I got out of jail before I was like, this ain't, I can't do this. And so they moved me to the corporate office and I was doing just boring ass computer work that I didn't like to do. Okay. And then finally, Harvey hits. And I'm like, this is my time. I'm going to go and shine. Like, I'm going to make everyone see how much I've changed, okay, and prove everybody wrong. And we go down to Harvey, and it's a mess. It really is. These buildings are completely destroyed. It was going to take like 50, 60 trades. I mean, it was just craziness. I've never seen anything like it. And so it was hard. It was hard to do anything over there. And fortunately, Irma hit right after Harvey. And so
Right.
Lee and them all went to Irma. I was staying in Harvey to make sure to like holding down the fort. He finally said like everyone needs to come to Irma. And so I went there for probably 3 weeks at the end of 2017. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it
still
hit
doing
September
drugs.
17.
Yeah, September 17th. So one thing I forgot to say, after my dad passed away, I was doing a lot of pain pills. That was my drug of choice after that. And so I had been doing them almost since he passed away, except for when I go to jail. So I had a clean period. Then when I got out, I started doing them again. Only reason is because in 2015 I made so much money because I was able to wake up at 7, go to work till 11 p.m. and be cheery, like energetic, all that stuff, then go out that night and be able to go to sleep by 2:30, get up and do it again. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and we were making handfuls of money. It was crazy. And so my dad passes away, 2017 comes, and like when you just like you said, okay, there's something that hits you inside that it's just like so powerful. Like it's just, I'm done. Like no amount of rehab, no amount of anything can help someone that's not through, not in their mind. Their mind hasn't told them. And so first I go to Irma, and um I go there for about 2 weeks. I just door knock. I sell like 5 to 10 contracts, and I gave them to people out on the island. And then I ended up having to go back for my probation, and so I went back to Dallas, and that's when I was just like, man, I can't do this. I can't, because I had went through withdrawals in Florida because I ran out of my pain pills. I didn't bring any enough really, and so that's really the reason I went back. And I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't. And so I went to this. I looked up a rehab. Fortunately, my mom had a job for a little bit. And it gave me benefits till I was 26 or something. So I was fortunate. I just had to pay the deductible because at this point I've had a lot of money, and I've had destroyed it all. I've had a good amount of money, destroyed it all. Money without meaning is like a vacuum. Okay, if you don't have any meaning, if you don't have any purpose, then you're just gonna go spend money on stupid stuff to try to make you happy all the time. And that's what I was doing. And so I was spending hands over fist for drugs, for clothing, for going out to the bars, this,
Wow.
that. And I just blew through everything. And so I go check myself in a rehab. I really like it. Like I had like a spiritual awakening there. When I got out though, I didn't want to jump right back into the business. And so I really couldn't either. They wanted me to go through this aftercare program. They wanted me to stay in Austin, this and that for a certain amount of time. So I ended up trying to humble myself. Okay. And I ended up, when I went to rehab, I met this girl. Okay. And we got out the same day. We got out of rehab the same day. I ended up calling her and went over there. She left her sober living. I'm still in sober living. Mm-hmm. And within 2 weeks, I moved in with her. And so it wasn't really that, it was terrible. It was terrible. Okay. But I wasn't doing drugs this whole year, 2018. And so I hadn't touched any drugs. Okay. And except for weed, I smoked weed. However, we just fought all the time. I mean, she caught a domestic violence charge on me because she hit the cop. Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. She's still a good person, but you know, she just has, when she drinks, it's not good. And so that went on for about 8 months, 9 months. And we ended up breaking up. And then I ended up trying to start a company called Global Contractor Network with one of my buddies who has a lot of money. He's a trust fund person, trust fund kid. And so I pitched him. He wants to work with me. He knows I'm a hustler. He knows, and he's going to fund it. And so we put this all together, and I put together so much. I mean, I have slides for ads. I have everything you can imagine. It was such a good thing. I was working my ass off every single day. And we were selling a couple of jobs. I sold a big metal job. We sold a few jobs. But I sold this metal job, okay? And the guy, he ended up GCing it himself because the GC didn't know what he was doing. So this guy really didn't know what he was doing. And I kind of helped him on, you know, doing his general contracting, the homeowner. Because you don't need a license there to be a general contractor. Anyone can be it.
Jared.
Yeah.
I want to pause for 1 second here. We only got an hour. So this is what I want to do. If you'll do this, man, I want to cut this to part one. I've never done this, but I'd like to do 2 parts with you. I'd like to make this part 1 right here and bring you back early next week to do part 2. Will you do that for me?
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I think there's so much value in what you've been through in your life and what people have gone through. I'm going to make this part 1. And for the first time, I'm going to bring somebody back for a part 2. And I want to do that next week. So I'm going to coordinate a time. Kenny, we can coordinate a time with him. Let's bring you back for part 2 next week. And we'll go from, how do we go from where you were that past, and then I want to bring the, you know, where you are now and how
dominant. You stopped it right at the perfect point.
Good. That's where I want to stop.
No, this is the transition.
Good.
Yeah.
Then let's start.
2019 was when I came here.
Awesome, because now we can talk about everything that's going on with 2019 forward. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that said, everybody, thanks for
the good stuff.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear because of everything you've done since then. Thanks everybody for joining us on the Roofers Den. This is part 1 with Jared. I'm gonna hold off on broadcasting this one, and we will go ahead and broadcast both parts. We'll get those out to everybody next week. So I won't publish this one until we get both parts done. Okay, Jared?
Okay, sounds good.
You're the man. Thanks everybody for joining us.